Off Monday edition, Monday, September 14th, and we are live as we are every Monday through Friday, every weekday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on WagerTalk TV, and then, of course, archived afterwards for your viewing pleasure on YouTube any time of the day and night. You can watch the replay, and this is actually a good show to watch on replay because we don't have any live games, any actual games tonight on Monday, but we do have 2 games tomorrow on Tuesday. We also have a couple of series that have ended, guys, since we last spoke on Friday afternoon. So I figure we'll do a little recap on those, maybe an advanced look to the games tomorrow. But then, of course, we'll be back tomorrow on Tuesday, our normal time, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, live here on WagerTalk TV to handicap that Game 7 between the Clippers and Nuggets and also Game 1 between the Celtics and Heat. Before we get into anything official, let's bring in my usual suspects from WagerTalk.com. I'll start with you, Tony Finn. How was your weekend? Give me your NFL thoughts. Anything else you want to talk about?
I cashed both of my NBA tickets, which are relevant to this show. I cashed my NFL tickets, both of my NFL tickets yesterday. It was. Listen, no complaints. It's a good weekend. Bottom line grew, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, and Teddy, I actually went 2-1 in the NFL, but I had a play on the Clippers yesterday, so that was a bummer of a way to start. And going 2-0 in the afternoon games in the NFL made it a little more stomachable, if that's a word. I'm going to make that a word, Teddy, stomachable. But how was your weekend overall, Teddy? I know you've been red hot overall at WagerTalk and Sportsmemo.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, I had this exact same situation as you yesterday. I went 2-1 in the NFL. I won the 5% big ticket, but I had a play on the Clippers that looked good at halftime. That was a pretty ugly second half from the LA. But there's a lot of things to talk about what we saw from the Clips yesterday in particular that may affect them moving forward. But we've seen the markets make an adjustment on the Clippers now that they hadn't made an adjustment earlier in the season, in the series, and I think it's deserved. The Clips A game can beat anyone, but the Clips A game is coming and going and continues to come and go, even with a chance to close out an opponent and close out a series after their opponent in the next series has already survived in advance. And to see that 30-8 run in the second half by Denver, give the Nuggets a ton of credit, but frankly, that's on Doc Rivers. That's on the Clippers in general. But Rivers is getting badly outcoached in this series. What else did we see over the weekend? We saw since last time we saw the Celtics escaped with the win over Toronto in a brutal Game 7, and we saw the Lakers blow out a pretty dysfunctional looking Rockets team in Game 6 of that series. The Lakers now probably deserve to be favorites to win it all.
Yeah, and I want to circle back around there and get a little more in depth on those since we haven't talked since those series closed out. Teddy, one bright spot, we might have lost our best bet on the Clippers, but we won our argument against Tony about Denver outplaying them at certain times. So I'm not sure what that's worth.
Yeah, but we're both idiots for not having the Clippers first half. I should have had. I mean, the right play was Clippers first half. But at that time when they were up 16, I'm like, this is stupid. I should be out of this bet already. And as soon as that run came to the second half, I was punching like you, Steve. I was punching myself in the face over that game. That game was. It was really bad. The Clips were really bad.
Really bad.
At a time where they're supposed to be really good.
Yeah, we'll definitely dig into Game 7 more. As you mentioned, there's been some adjustments and definitely some takeaways from that. And, of course, that game's tomorrow, guys, on Tuesday night. So we'll do an in-depth analysis on the Tuesday show. But, Rob, kind of circling around right now, Rob Vino, and just getting your thoughts on the weekend overall, NFL, NBA, how'd everything go for you?
Yeah, college football was good. Profitable college football weekend. Began on Thursday night with the Miami Hurricanes. And continued through. Yesterday, NFL would have been all right, but I got hurt on my 5% play. Arizona, San Francisco over, and final drive by San Francisco approached the Arizona 22, 21-yard line. I think they were on a march, and that's when Jimmy Garoppolo turned back into Jimmy Garoppolo and failed to hit a touchdown pass that was open for him, and then threw a soft toss over to the boundary that got, knocked away to finish the game off. So that aside, not bad, Steve. I mean, the last time I had a basketball play, I think was the last time we talked, which was Friday when Boston closed out the series against Toronto. Strong game by the Celtics defensively one more time. And I think we found something that we actually hit on the last show, that Toronto's just prone to dry spells offensively because they don't have that one big gun. Where Boston had Jason Tatum, Toronto didn't really have that answer down the stretch. So good series by Boston, sets up for a great Boston-Miami series as well.
Yeah, I was on the Celtics as well Friday night. Teddy and I, of course, had to play yesterday. Tony, did you have anything Saturday in that Lakers-Rockets game? Let's talk a little bit about that series since we haven't been on since they closed that one out. Lakers came out and played hard from start to finish, unlike the other LA team on Sunday.
The game played out like I thought it would. I wrote that, listen, the Lakers now, they were in the backseat of that series against the Clippers, thinking the Clippers could close out the night before. And they didn't, and now the Lakers were in that situation where they could actually close out, be the rested team, have some momentum, and if you believe in such a thing, a little bit of a psychological edge, going into that series, which I think is fairly important. And Teddy just described it. I actually wrote that I played the under in the Clippers Denver game, so I cashed where you guys didn't. And when I wrote it up, though, if you read my write-up, you would have thought that the Clippers were, the next best thing to slice bread, and they were going to win this game going away, et cetera, et cetera. And it was actually what I thought would happen to Denver happened to the Clippers. They're the ones that scored 35 points in the second half and didn't do some of the things I believe that they should do or should be able to be capable of. And so now my thought on this is what I thought about Kawhi, you guys, and maybe you can answer this. Is Kawhi, I never thought George, I never thought he was a leader. I never thought he was a guy who was going to stand up in front of a team and say, listen, I'm going to lead you to the promised land.
Right.
Whereas I thought Kawhi might, while he's the player, we know he can play. We know we can do the things that other NBA players can't, and that's why he is who he is. My thinking, and I'd love someone to say you're right or you're wrong, Tony, and tell me why, and that is I'm starting to believe that maybe this Clippers team's leaderless. Do they have a guy that can stand up? Is Kawhi that guy, or was he just a player on a team that was pretty deep and played, if you want to compare it to this year, played above their pay grade or played better than they did?
Maybe had Kyle Lowry as the leader as well.
That's my thought. That was my thought.
Yeah, yes. That would be my initial thought when you said that. I mean, I think, Leonard carried that team, but then again, Lowry's the hype guy, I guess, if you want to call him that. I definitely agree about Paul George being kind of a quiet, behind-the-scenes guy. Teddy, what are your general thoughts on that?
So I don't think it's a leadership issue with the Clippers at all. They're a veteran team, and Morris is a leader on that team. Patrick Beverley is a leader on that team. It's not about your superstars necessarily, but I can't overstate the enough. Doc Rivers has looked clueless with adjustments compared to Mike Malone. Clueless. Zubac, the minutes that Harrell was on the floor instead of Zubac. Yes, I understand Harrell's the NBA Sixth Man of the Year. Harrell is struggling right now. He's really struggling on the defensive end. And to see Zubac sitting and Harrell playing in crunch time minutes, to me, that's on the coaching. If I'm pointing fingers at the Clips, I'm pointing a finger directly at Doc Rivers. And that's a concern when it comes to a Game 7 situation, especially given the Nuggets' propensity and experience in these Game 7s, not just this year, last year as well. The pressure's on LA right now. And Denver's playing loose and free just the way they did against Utah.
Yeah, Rob, that's kind of what I wanted to hint at and get your thoughts on it. I mean, it's just eerily setting up similar to the Utah-Denver series, isn't it, guys, where the Nuggets were dead in the water. Should have very well been swept 5-0, not just in 4. They should have probably been swept in 5 games, but found a way to survive. Terrible in Game 1 here. We made reasons for it, and maybe that was the reason for it. They were tired. Teddy and I felt like the Nuggets had outplayed the Clippers at times. Tony disagreed, saying the Clippers just weren't showing up, but we kind of agreed with that. That's what we meant by them being outplayed. They weren't showing up.
I'm right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly how Game 6 played. I mean, damn. This series should be over. But, Rob, what's crazy is the Lakers close out Saturday. We all kind of agreed that, hey, that would make a difference for the Clippers to play harder. I mean, I'm sure that's why Teddy was on the board like I was yesterday with L.A. Rob, just big picture thoughts. We'll dig into the X's and O's of this tomorrow, but just your big picture thoughts of the takeaway of both the L.A. teams this weekend, I guess.
Well, the first thing and probably the biggest news for myself over the weekend that I excluded from my initial thing was I got Lou Williams yesterday, over 13.5, and he scraped by with 14 points.
I saw your vanilla background, so I figured you were at home still.
Despite shooting 0 of 5 from three-point range and 2 of 10 for the game.
He did just enough from the free throw line, and as Teddy mentioned, from 2-point range to get us to 14 points. And so my love relationship with Lou Williams is back on.
Those lines are so sharp, Rob Vino. They're so sharp. They're so. Are they efficient or are they accurate? I think they're both.
Boy, oh boy! Lou Williams must be cognizant of what the number is on himself.
He's trying to middle it. I think he's been trying to middle the games. Yeah,
because he only scored 4 points yesterday. Which game are you talking about?
No, not yesterday, right? Teddy, in yesterday's game, I thought it was 14.
Yeah, but Lou Williams got to 4.
No, Lou Williams. The game before that. Yesterday he's 5 of 11 and 3 for 3 from the free throw line. He makes one of 2 3-pointers.
I'm looking at the wrong box score. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay, that might have been the game. Yeah,
exactly. Question you, Rob.
No, believe me, when it comes to me and Lou Williams, I know where I stand.
I got very nervous here because I thought maybe Rob was squatting in a house he no longer owns. So
I thought maybe they credited my account for something I didn't deserve. I want to keep that quiet if that's the case.
There's going to be a knock on the door during this live show.
I was looking at the game, the previous game's box score. My bad.
But for a second here, Steve, I'll bounce back to Lakers Houston where you started, because I think we all kind of agreed on Friday that there would be correlating results between the two LA teams, and we didn't get correlating results. We got one team that flailed around, even knowing that the other team had closed out. The Clippers didn't play well Friday night. The Lakers come and trounce Houston on Saturday. The Clippers come back and flail around in the second half. So we didn't get identical efforts from those two teams. But the Lakers guys, percentage-wise, they shot better than the Rockets from the field in that series. They shot better than the Rockets from three-point range in that series. They shot better than the Rockets from the free throw line in that series. And again, if Los Angeles, the way they close that series, 3 consecutive games shooting better than 50%, if they're going to shoot that way, they're very tough to beat. And the Rockets heading in, I know we're getting a lot of accolades for their defensive efforts, being the number 1 defensive team, at least carrying the number 1 defensive rating or points allowed through the playoffs into that series. And it all fell apart against Los Angeles, who, strategically, you were talking about maybe Doc Rivers getting out-coached. Frank Vogel didn't get out-coached. He's probably got a few more horses, but he didn't get out-coached. He went small, limited JaVale McGee's minutes, let Anthony Davis play more. And they went ahead and won that series with brute strength, which is, when you match those two up, I think from the get-go, when the initial trade occurred and Russell Westbrook was allowed the lane, I think that's what we thought would happen all along when Lakers and Rockets matched up. So good series by the Lakers. In Boston, we talked about a little bit. And as for the Clips, just look one more time, because I'll put myself in the center here, because I'm the guy who stood up and said, I don't think that the LA Clippers offensively will shoot 41% from the field again. Well, they didn't. They shot 42 on Friday night and reverted right back to 41 on Sunday. So either it's a real bad shooting series for the Clippers, or we really need to start crediting Denver Nugget defense as much as we, point out the shortcomings of Michael Porter Jr. on the defensive end, and as much as we point out the shortcomings of Jokic and pick and roll, the rest of this team has played really, really good defense. I know that Gary Harris is a guy we've talked about quite a bit on the perimeter, but LA has not shot the basketball for whatever reason, guys, and it showed up big in the second half yesterday. And like I say, 3 games in a row where the best they could shoot is 42%. That's not going to get it done against Denver if that happens again, or if it does, then we're staring at an 89-86 final score in Game 7.
Yeah, and guys, by the way, before we get back, I want to bring something up on that Lakers shooting, but also want to remind everyone it's $9 Monday at WagerTalk and also SportsMemo Select Cappers. Each and every best bet at WagerTalk.com, $9. That's including 5%ers tonight that are normally $40 are just $9. And we'll get everyone's take on what the best bets they have here in a few moments for Monday. But going back to that Lakers series, guys, one thing I want to point out, the Lakers set franchise records for three-pointers made in playoff games 4 times already this playoffs. Insane. Now, they hadn't been in the playoffs for 7 years, since 2013, but in 3 of the Portland games, they set franchise records for threes made in a playoff game, and they did it with 19 in Game 5 on Saturday. Tony, I'll start with you. How much of that is the Lakers just being a fantastic three-point shooting team all of a sudden, but how much also is random variance, or more so maybe, in my opinion, the Rockets? And you would think the Clippers could shut that down as well as anybody if the Clippers can get to Game 1. But just your takeaways on that 3-point shooting, Tony. It was 4 different games they set franchise records so far.
I think if I put too much emphasis or overreact to that, then I'd have to overreact to a bunch of other things that have happened in the bubble, and that is how passionate have I been about Marcus Smart and his shooting, and he's just not that good a shooter, and what he's done, and that I really didn't give Jason Tatum probably the credit that he's due. There's only been what? First off, I'll go back to your question. That is, in the regular season, I think Miami and didn't they themselves, along with the Clippers, didn't really hold 3-point shooters to bay. I mean, I think they gave up more than most teams, at least more than the playoff teams. So, how much credit do I give the Lakers? Do you think LeBron James is a marksman from the 3-point line? I think he's improved over the years. That's because he's taken a million shots from the 3-point line, and he owns the ball on any team he's leading. But I'm just not going to put a lot on that. I don't think that's where the Lakers would be at their best. It would seem like they would want to be taking the ball with a guy like LeBron, who's better in transition and going to the rim than a guy like LeBron who has the ball in his hand all the time. And that's a big guy to stand in front of, right? That would be my take on that. And there's been and again, I want to go back to the Tatum. I want to go back to what Teddy and these guys have talked about Boston, and in fact that maybe I devalued Boston or underestimated them to agree, but especially Tatum. And that is, I'm trying to think, do you guys know NBA finalists? Let's say NBA finalists. How many of NBA finalists have a player that led the league or led their team, led in scoring, like a Bird, like maybe a Shaquille O'Neal or a Tim Duncan in their first 3 seasons, and I'm thinking, are they a finalist? The Celtics, are they a finalist? And is Tatum one of those guys that 5 or 8, 10 years from now, we look back on like we look back at a Bird or a Shaquille or a Duncan? I want to, I want to kind of get sick thinking about that I would be that far off, but maybe I am.
Yeah, I mean, my quick take on that, Tony, is that it's a different era we live in with these youngsters, but also this is a different season with the bubble and
maybe so.
You would think that if Boston, in particular, gets to play one of the LA teams, that Kawhi or LeBron would have a huge veteran edge over them in a big game.
Yeah.
But then again, it's been a shorter season. That also should benefit the veterans. Actually, they're not as tired and worn out. But Teddy, what are your big picture thoughts on some of these topics? I mean, one thing about that Clipper game that Rob mentioned, Teddy, is, yes, the Clippers have shot 42% or less in 4 of their 6 games, but then the other 2, they shot 55 and 57%. So what do you do with numbers like that, Teddy? And is it just pure random variance, or can you read more into that? And the last 3 games obviously have been more ugly. In a 7-game series, teams make adjustments. Has Denver done something to make an adjustment?
Yeah, Malone's coaching circles around Rivers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I call him as I see him. Denver's making adjustments and LA isn't. Denver's made rotation adjustments. Denver made defensive adjustments. And the Clippers, who, again, weren't and aren't a finished commodity, a team that remade themselves last offseason and has had injuries and attrition all year long to keep them from getting that. We're in rhythm. The Lakers have had a lot of that too.
Yeah.
But let's call it how we see it. The supporting cast around the 2 superstars is playing better for the Lakers than it is for the Clippers. The bench, that's supposed to be the Clippers' great strength, the bench has killed them.
Lou Williams.
Loose. So he's like 6 of 40 from 3-point range.
Wow.
And his numbers in the bubble are stunningly bad.
Yeah.
For Lou Williams. But it's not just Williams, it's also Montrez.
Right.
Who has been, let's give Jokic some credit. All right. Jokic is playing like the best center in basketball, and it's not really that close.
Yeah.
But Montrez can't guard him, and he can't do anything on the offensive end, and I don't know why he's in the game instead of Zubac. To me, it's that's on one coach making adjustments and the other coach not making adjustments. And that's why we're in a game 7. And that's why after my experience with the Clips in game 6, there's no way I'm going to get to the window late in game 7. Yeah. Can't do it. Don't trust that team.
Yeah. And by the way,
when you're up like 19 in the second half in a closeout game, you're supposed to win those.
Yes. And
to lose by double digits, and the post-game comments from the Clips, red flags everywhere right now with LA.
I've said it. I'll say it again, Steve. I'll say it again, guys. Good teams close quarters out start quarters strong and close quarters and halves out strong. And Teddy's right. That's a game that the Clippers are supposed to cakewalk. They're supposed to be they were supposed to be taking disco biscuits and cruising through the second half of that game.
Yeah, and Tony, it's ironic because I had the Clippers, and as Teddy mentioned, in hindsight, should have had them on the first half. I had no problem, guys, playing them full game because as I'm watching that Laker game with nothing on it Saturday night, and the Lakers are up big, in the second half they roll without a problem, I'm thinking this is when you just lay it on because the teams are done. They know they're leaving the bubble. So I never thought I had no worries about Denver coming back in that second half. I thought if anything, the Clippers would extend their lead Sunday, kind of like the Lakers did. So definitely a red flag for me. Tony, what do you think?
I don't mean to cut you off, but I totally did because the Rockets have not been a character team and the Nuggets have.
Yeah.
And that's why I was worried at halftime yesterday. As soon as the Nuggets made their run, I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah. No question that the Nuggets have been a character team. No question about it. They're down 3-1 to the Jazz and come back. They're one of only, 7 or 9 teams in NBA history to do that at the time. And they're making a comeback now against the Clippers. Rob, I want to circle back to what you kind of brought up and we've all talked about here about the Clippers shooting percentage. As I said, that first game, game 1, they shoot 57. We all know Denver was on a one-day layoff, and tired, so we could almost toss that one out. So if you really want to look at it more realistically, the Clippers have shot 42% or worse in 4 of the 5 games since then, including 3 straight. Do you agree with Teddy, Rob, that it's just Malone making adjustments and now coaching him, or is there a bigger factor we're overlooking maybe?
Well, I'll go back to what Teddy mentioned about the bench. And I'll say this, there's 2 distinct, I won't call it, I guess I could call them moves that we see from each team here. The first one is in the game yesterday, guys, Gary Harris had 42 minutes. It's the first time he's played anything above, I think, 28 minutes in this series, but at least he's never gotten to 30 since he's come back. When he can go 42 full minutes, and Mike Malone can disperse the minutes across his bench, that bench becomes much more effective. So for Denver, I think things can only look brighter. Something real subtle. I talked about it the other day, but I think it could be a case in disruption offensively for the LA Clippers. Listen, since Pat Beverly came back, and you have to make a big deal out of Pat Beverly getting back into the lineup from a defensive standpoint, right? But in 6 games in this series, he's contributed 29 points. That's less than 5 a game, almost 5 a game. Let's give him 5. But I think the difference here is that, up until this point, Reggie Jackson as backup point guard had been making threes, had been really making a big offensive contribution to this team. With Pat Beverly back, his minutes are null and void. He doesn't see the floor right now. And I just wonder if Beverly coming back didn't disrupt some things offensively because he hasn't produced, and a guy who was producing in the backup role no longer gets a chance to produce in the backup role. So, when you're incorporating guys in and out, the cohesiveness, to get it back really fast, sometimes it doesn't happen. And maybe that's what's happening to LA offensively. I don't see a lot of problems with them on the defensive side overall. And they certainly had a problem in the second half against Denver yesterday. But overall, I think they still are strong defensively. But that is something as simple as Reggie Jackson no longer playing could be a reason why. And that's a decision Doc Rivers makes, guys. Doc Rivers, as Teddy said, that's his choice, not to play a guy who he can throw in for instant offense. And that's just not happening right now.
And how about this, guys? One of the offshore books has a look-ahead series price right now. It's Lakers minus 130, Clippers even. Tony, I'm sure most people won't play it or can't play it, but just your initial thoughts on that. I'm not surprised, as Teddy said, to see the Lakers favored now in the series.
No, not especially when you're only like we are. We're only as good as our last game, and so are the Clippers and Lakers, and that's that. The aesthetics of that looks spot on.
Yeah, Teddy, your thoughts on that? Lakers minus 130, even on the Clippers.
Yeah, well, now the Lakers are going to have a rest edge against the Clippers.
Yes.
And you have to devalue the Clippers. You have to.
Yep.
Off of what we've seen. I'm not surprised at all the Lakers are now the favorite if the Clippers get there.
Yeah, by the way, it's Denver minus 270. Lakers minus 270, take back plus 210 if it's the Nuggets. Let me ask you this, Teddy, while we stick on that topic. If the Clippers win by 30 tomorrow, do you think that price drops a little bit? I mean,
Yeah.
If they win by 1, does it go up a little bit?
I think that the markets have already decided that they think the Lakers are the better of the two teams right now. So I'm not anticipating a huge move off of the Game 7 result. But if the Clips win by 30 and look dominant doing so, then I would expect some Clippers money. And if the Clips barely escape with a win, I would expect some Lakers money. I mean, that's just the way the markets work.
Rob, do you see a situation where the Clippers will be favored in this series going forward as of now, even if they win big?
Yeah, I don't think they'll be favored, Steve, but I like your point because I was going to make the same point. If the Clippers win in dominating fashion tomorrow, that price won't be 130. It may come down 120, 115, something like that. I think that for people who want to bet the Lakers in this series, you're lucky Ski Profit didn't set the line because they'd be laying $1.80 if Ski was in charge of making the odds here. I'm sure he's very happy with what's going on so far. Lakers proving right now to be the better team. But Tony said it best. You're as good as your last game. And if Los Angeles comes out and beats Denver, 115-92 tomorrow, then everybody's just going to shrug it off and say, oh, well, they just toyed around with them. And when they really want to do it, they're still the Clippers. And therefore, I think you would see Clippers money in the series. So we'll see what they do, Steve. But I think Tony's very accurate in the fact that you're only as good as what your last performance was, especially with where these odds are set.
Yeah, once again, everyone, we'll dig into this Game 7 between the Nuggets and Clippers more in tomorrow's show on Tuesday. Clippers a 7.5-point favorite. It's the smallest it's been in the entire series. They're minus 320 on the money line. Take back plus 265. So about a 70 to 73% chance. The odds are saying that the Clippers do advance to face the Lakers. About a 27% chance it's the Nuggets. And look ahead line once again. I didn't type it up because it's less likely, but it'd be Lakers minus 270, Nuggets plus 210 approximately. Obviously, the juice will be a little less when the real line is out. These are look aheads, and the house edge is a bit higher on them. Before we get to, I want to recap and touch back on that Celtics Raptors, guys, before we head out for the day. But first, a quick reminder: it is $9 Monday, so I want to get everyone's thoughts on that. Tony Finn, I know you've been just fantastic all year. And by the way, Tony, before we get to what you got going on, I got a question for you from James Thomas. Tony, how many 5%ers do you normally have in the football season?
Kind of a trick question. It depends. It's not like I say I'm going to have a 5%er every week. If I like a game, listen, if it was up to me, if I like 5 games equally and above and beyond what's normal, I would have 5%. We're not allowed to do that. In a football season, you're going to find that I have a 5%. In the NFL, which I really like, and I seem to be I have some kind of a 4-leaf clover with. I like a 5% almost every weekend. It's different in college for me.
So you, on average, maybe one per week. Then
pretty much. I think so. Yeah, I think it's fair.
And what do you have going for tonight? $9 Monday at WagerTalk.com for you.
I do have one in play on the late game, the one at Mile High with the Broncos.
Invesco.
I'm sorry?
Invesco.
It's still Mile High to me as well.
Sports Authority. It's been 100 things in the last 10 years.
And if the Washington football team plays, it'll be Redskins, Broncos, and Mile High as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Well, it is at Mile High still. They use that term there, don't they? I think they do.
It's the same stadium,
field,
right? It is the
at
same
Mile High or
too.
something.
Yeah.
I use Mile High, and that's all that matters in my orbit. Whatever you guys get, all that matters.
I'm also stuck in the 80s and 90s, so I'm not a good one to be a defender of you.
I do have that, and I have a baseball play tonight, and it's at twilight. Actually, got some like for us here out in the west on the left coast. It's like it's a happy hour game, so 5:00.
Yeah, it's been a great weekend in sports overall. I mean, we got 2 Monday night NFL games. We still got baseball. It's a good thing we don't have NBA. We kind of talked about that on Friday. They want to go head-to-head, so they started the series on Tuesday, Teddy, like we thought they would with the Clippers and Raptors. But, Teddy, by the way, I want to let you know that somebody bought your series. Teddy does have a 5% play on the Celtics Heat series. Is that not correct?
No, I have a 4% play.
4%, okay. He must have liked it enough where he made it a 5% after buying it. But, you got a 4% on the Celtics Heat series, which starts tomorrow. Is that available, Teddy, for $9 today on $9?
Sure is. I have a play for Game 1 and a play for the series up available right now at both SportsMemo and WagerTalk.com. I also do have a 5% play up for college football with a line that is – I'm not going to say how far off it is. It's off, and it's already moving. If you want to get it today. It's $9, and that line's going to move, and we're going to price us out of it. But it hasn't gotten there yet.
Nice.
It only just started moving. It's that line was. There are many times that I'm like, that line is way off. That line was way off, and the market's already correcting it. So we have to do a 5% up again. $9 on $9 Monday.
Nice. And Teddy's at sportsmemo.com as well. Wager
I'm
Talk.
looking it up right now. I'll go ahead and tell people what it is when I find it.
Remember, Teddy, I can always do this. If he does it, I can always mute him. I don't want to drop him because he won't be in the top square anymore.
Well,
if I drop him, he won't be there.
It's really important to know. We appreciate our audience. Okay.
Yes.
You're going to watch the show every day. You're going to get free plays that other people are going to pay.
Yes, you're right.
We can't give out everything. We're not going to give out everything. But if you watch the show, you're going to get tidbits, and you're probably going to know who I'm on without buying.
And the other thing, exactly right. And you benefit from watching the full show and reading between the lines. I think that's only fair. We don't just say, hey, we're playing team A, but we talk for 5 minutes about a game. You start to realize what side we think you should be on, and you deserve to get that information when you're a loyal viewer, and that's why we do it that way. And also, we've been giving out a lot of, props. Like Teddy and I, and even Rob and Tony, we don't delve really deep into the props as far as using them for best bets and whatnot, but we give our opinions on how games are going to play out. And Ski's been giving out a lot of good props so far during the playoffs. We'll keep that going tomorrow on Tuesday as we dive in deep into the two actual games. Rob Vino, what you got going on for a $9 Monday at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, I'm involved in the NFL tonight. Same game Tony is. As a lifelong Denver Bronco fan, I would still refer to it as Mile High. Those are the glory days for sure for the Denver Broncos. So, Tone, I'll give you that. Orange Crush defense and all that stuff. But I'm involved in that game tonight. That play is up and available right now. And Teddy already up with college football. I am going up with college football to give the college football guys a shot at some $9 stuff in CFB. So you can look forward to that as soon as the show closes here. College football obviously into its third week now, where we're getting a little bit of a feel for it. Real quick, guys. How crazy can you be? You beat Arkansas State, and you go get a party bus and wind up with 20 cases of COVID. Props to the Memphis Tigers football team, which played themselves right out of a game this week. So that sort of stuff, guys, I tell you what, Saturday mornings come and you just keep finding this stuff out before game time. Actually, Friday night was a night to find out some of this coronavirus information. In fact, the Thursday night game with Miami and South Alabama. So it's just going to keep happening to us each and every week. Got to keep your eye out for it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Rob, because I was going to make a point that one of the benefits of being a subscription client, $9 Monday is great, but we preach these, weekly, monthly, seasonal packages, because when Teddy releases a game like he did today, you get instant notification, and you have that play at the best possible number you're going to get most likely all week. Right. And same with Rob Vino and myself and Tony Finn as well. We all have an edge. More times than not, the line is better earlier than week than it is closing line. So, Teddy, that's something definitely to keep in mind.
Well, we were talking about the COVID outbreak. So the game that my 5% in college football is based on a COVID outbreak that was not factored into the number that is getting factored into the number. So if the team I'm betting on gets one between now and Saturday, I'm screwed. But I'm betting against a team that has had one, and the markets were like, oh, yeah, whatever.
And I want to interrupt you. And my loser in college this weekend was based on a COVID play, and I had the under in that Kansas, Coastal Carolina. Kansas had quite a few. They had a problem with the COVID, and it wasn't advertised very much. They're still keeping it quiet, really. But it went over. And if you look at the stat, here's one of those deals where it just doesn't always work out. Look at the stats of Coastal, how many points they scored, the yards they got. This game's supposed to come in under, and it didn't. So buyer beware from somebody like me that might advertise having some insight and it not being accurate. But not because Daddy's going to say it, but not because it wasn't right. What?
I got to go about the party bus. All right.
Oh,
that's where I got to go, because it was like unbelievable.
Well, dude,
did you guys forget what it's like to be 20 years old?
No, I don't.
Listen, absolutely, Teddy.
I don't begrudge them for that at all. I would have done the same thing.
Exactly.
I still would. I still would today.
And go, those kids today. Shut up. Get off my lawn, guy. I'm not going to get off my lawn, guy.
I'm pissed that party bus didn't come by my house. That's what I'm at.
And it's funny that Teddy mentions that, guys, because I happen to be doing a segment on Friday night, out of town segment, where we brought that up. I mean, it's not about being angry with kids. It's about college kids are going to be college kids. Right. And that's what we have to look out for the most right now. And if something else, I know this is an NBA show, and I got us all off onto a college football COVID tangent here. But, I read multiple quotes, started with one, found two, found four, from head coaches across America that run college football teams that are going to try and keep this stuff as quiet as they can. They don't want the opponent to know. They don't want to know what personnel is going to be missing. They don't want opponents to know how many. Just show up on game day and have the opponent figure it out for themselves. And I'll tell you what, it goes way back. Been doing a college football show on every Tuesday afternoon with Ralph Michaels and Drew Martin since the third week of March. And somewhere around June, Gary Patterson, the head coach of TCU, had made the statement. At the time, it was kind of just a little back and forth. I didn't think much of it, but he had said if opposing head coaches that Saturday didn't tell him top of the week, midweek, the latest, how many COVID cases the other team had, then he was just going to postpone the game and not play it at all. And then you had the other voice to that. It was a Pac-12 coach, I can't remember who now, who said, I'm not telling anybody. Of course, Pac-12 isn't playing football, so it's irrelevant. But that mindset exists across teams that are playing where they want it to be a strategic advantage. So for us guys trying to bet these things and release them as plays to clients, it takes a lot to read between the lines here and figure out just what's going on with these teams. So we dig. And hopefully we find situations. Hopefully, for Teddy, we're all rooting for him to be on a good one here.
Yeah, and luckily, guys, the NBA's done a good job with this bubble where we haven't had to deal with it. James actually has a question. If we finish out here on college football, I wanted to bring this up anyway. I was thinking about it earlier. So, James, I appreciate you for asking. My opinion on this, guys, and if you disagree, just weigh in. But you can't predict who's going to get it. I mean, you can read between the lines. Like Teddy saw some information that wasn't factored yet, so most likely he's on the right side there. But we can't predict if something happens this Thursday or Friday. That'll be 50-50 in the long run, in my opinion. You're going to win some, lose some, but you got to figure these games are going to play as normal. So you want to get the best number if you can early in the week, if you think the line's going to move and you're on the right side. So
it's hypothetical, Steve. It's hypothetical, guys. I mean, for the most part, the games I released early in NFL Week 1 typically are the worst case scenario is that we're going to be on the right side of information that may happen or may not happen. That's just the way I approach it. I'm always, like I've said, one of my mantras is that people wish us luck, wish me luck. And I'll say, well, please, keep that luck. I can only have bad luck because I'm always right.
So make your own luck. What do you think, Teddy?
So my thought process is real simple. Okay. You're not going to be able to control the information about COVID-19.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do your due diligence every day and see what you can find. You go through your local papers, go through your beat writers. I'm paying more attention to the student newspapers this year than I have in years past.
Interesting.
Because there's info in there that sometimes doesn't make even the mainstream because they're at practice. But the key is when you see your strike price, whatever it is, you make your bet. If I'm waiting for a 3 and I see a 3, that's up. And if I have to get off it or if I end up on the wrong side because there's a COVID situation or whatever, so be it. You're not going to get everything right. But for me, getting the line that I'm looking for, that's my priority. And that's what I will do. That's how I'm approaching betting early week versus late week.
Beware the Russian middle.
Yeah, and sometimes you're going to get wrong. You won't get all of them right. But hopefully you'll get more right than you do wrong. I just wanted to comment on Lou Denny's.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, Teddy. Actually, hold on 1 second because I was going to get to that one as we transition back to NBA here. But I just couldn't help. I got to ask Tony real quick: is a Russian middle on a party bus a total no bet for you, or is that just a stay away at that point?
Well, if I'm on a party bus, then it's probably going to be a Russian middle.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It won't. I won't even care probably if I'm thinking about getting off a game and I'm on a party bus. I'm gonna probably throw intelligence to the wind. But what intelligence I do have.
I do agree with what Teddy said. My take on all this is I can't predict if COVID's going to break out on Thursday or Friday. I'm handicapping these games, and I figure that's going to work for you and against you at some point this season on a play on and a play against situation. All seriousness, though, with the party bus, if you do see that after the Saturday game, then maybe you stay off that game Monday or Tuesday. That would be the only thing I could say. Maybe there's a little foreshadowing there. But guys, once again, $9 Monday. I've also got an NFL Monday Night Football winner between the Giants and Steelers up there for $9 tonight on Monday. Started 2-1, 67% of the NFL yesterday on Sunday. Teddy, I wanted to wrap back around here the last few minutes, guys. And we're going to dig deep into the Celtics Heat game 1 tomorrow. But I wanted to close out. We haven't talked a lot about that game 7 because it's been a few days since we saw game 7. But we were last on before it was played on Friday. And I saw this in here too. I think it's the one you were referencing. It was the same one, Teddy. I was going to get to this. Lou, Celtics are about $1.35 favorite right now in this series.
Yeah.
So if you do have them at plus 145, I actually would not hedge because there's a very good chance the sports book's going to void that wager if you just made it recently.
I was going to say, if you find the Celtics plus 145, that's an off-market number. You grab it and you put it in your pocket.
You definitely do, but I wouldn't hedge it, though, because there again, if it's a bad line, sports books will sometimes just cancel and void the wager, and you're going to be
just
stuck.
hedge it at a different book. Not the same way.
No, but you're not. That's my point, though.
Yeah.
That other wager is going to stand, and you're not going to, and you're going to be at $0 on the Celtics, and you're going to have the other one in your pocket without being able to hedge it.
Essentially a Russian middle.
To tell a nightmare story, I made a big hedge bet at halftime of the Super Bowl that I only made because I was going to win a contest that was worth 50 dimes if I won. So I made a big bet.
I know what happened. I bet.
Yeah, it was all Saints. You know the drill. Yeah, that was when. I'm not going to give the name of the sports book,
right.
But the sports book went under.
Right.
I didn't get my 50 dimes, and I lost my hedge bet, and I had to pay that out. It was a much bigger bet than I ever would have made. So it was an absolute fist up the ass. You don't want that very often.
Ouch.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And more times than not now, these they will avoid them. In fact, if just some advice for all viewers out there, if you want to get in good with your sports book, instead of hoping that they don't catch it, you bet a bad line. Call them up, let them know. They appreciate it. They should give you a credit probably if you do that. I would if I was a sportsbook owner, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But there's definitely fine print on all these guys. I don't know if that would qualify as a bad number. My guess is they mean to have them at minus 145 because it's anywhere from minus 135 to minus 140-ish on this series. My guess is that plus is supposed to be a minus sign, and they're going to avoid that if you bet it and they catch on. So
Celtics minus 1.5 plus 145.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
That makes more sense.
Yes.
That might be exactly what it's supposed to be then. So to win by 2 games or more, plus 145 basically is what you're in for the series price. Last few minutes here, Tony, I'll start with you. What were your takeaways of Game 7? I know it's been a few days, Raptors, Celtics. We felt like the Celtics have been a better team in that series. All their wins have been impressive. Their losses have been narrow. Anything change in your opinion in Game 7?
My thoughts, I gave you some of those on Tatum and those guys. But my thoughts went further than that. They went more towards Tony, start digging in on teams that played Game 7s. How have they come out in Game 7s against teams that have been rested? And from what I've found so far, it's tough like the Celtics in that first game with Miami rested. In fact, let's go back to I think LeBron and Wade and those guys had won like 20. Long story short is I'll tell everyone right now listening, and that is that I think that he'd have an edge tomorrow in several different areas, and one of them is that they're going to be fresher.
Once again, just to clarify, guys, Lou would say he typed it up here. Said yes, you probably saw what I'm seeing now.
I did.
Minus 1.5 games, plus 145. But it was still a good topic to talk about because there are bad lines posted. And Teddy, your middle story is spot on. Not just for a bad line, but if there's some risk for not getting paid on a contest, always keep in mind the worst case scenario. I do that in the investment world and also the sports betting world. And COVID is a little bit of the worst case scenario as well. A Russian middle party bus would be the ultimate example of that. Teddy, your closing thoughts on Raptors Celtics? Any takeaways from Game 7?
In terms of what's moving forward, look, that was a defensive scrum of a series. Miami played great defense against Milwaukee. And if the Heat play defense like they did against the Bucks, and the Celtics play defense like they did against the Raptors, we're going to see a whole lot of unders until the markets adjust when these two teams play.
Yeah, Rob, just recapping that series against Toronto, as we talked about on the show going into Game 7, every game had gone under in regulation. The only game 6-1 to the under, the overtime, and Game 6 was the only reason we got an over. So really every single game stayed under in regulation time, Rob. Did you see anything different in Game 7? Obviously, we felt the Celtics were the better team coming in. They win by 5 as a 3-point favorite. What were your closing thoughts on the Raptors season, I guess, in the Celtics series?
Well, I'll say this. Again, for the Celtics, thank God they had Jason Tatum in Game 7. Because if you take the trio of Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, and Marcus Smart, 3 of the other 4 starters on that team, they go 4 for 24 from 3-point range, but under 17%. So they didn't help whatsoever as far as long-distance shooting is concerned. And what was frustrating me as a guy who had the Celtics -2.5 that night was the miserable free throw shooting that Boston put up in that game. They go 13 of 23 from the free throw line. So think about that, guys. They shoot 56% for the free throw line. 3 of their 4 shooting starters go 4 for 24 from 3, and they still win. It's Jason Tatum in that series. I'll say it again. I've said it 100 times since we've been doing this NBA show, but matchups make series. Miami's not Toronto. They're far different in a lot of ways. But both positive and negative, guys. I mean, they're different in a lot of ways than what the Toronto and the Boston Celtics are extremely different than what the Milwaukee Bucks were in the playoffs,
and the Indiana
especially when they had,
yeah,
and the Indiana, especially when Giannis got hurt. It's a different Milwaukee team. So whole new series, and I think you have to match them up that way. At least I am. I'm only talking from my own fundamental handicapping standpoint. I'm matching them up, regrouping all over again because I find a lot of differences between the opposition that these teams have played and the opposition that they're going to face.
Yeah, so we'll get into these, of course, tomorrow, guys. We do have two games on Tuesday. Nothing today on Monday, but this is a great recap of the weekend since we last spoke. And Teddy, do you want to answer that question in the chat there?
Yeah, so I don't mean to drag the show on.
I was going to ask you if you wanted. I wasn't sure if you wanted to name names or not, but I was going to ask you either way.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, put it up there. 11111K 11111. What is my go-to book in Nevada? That in itself is a question that merits addressing because I don't have a go-to book. What I have is I don't have my phone. I have a phone with a bunch of apps on it, and all of them funded. And my go-to book is, a 222. Oh, this one has a 1.5. Bang.
Yeah.
That's my go-to book. South Point's good. Westgate's good. Circa's good. BetMGM's good. You can go on and down the line. There are many excellent books within the state of Nevada. I want them all, not one.
And there's a few bad ones.
And South Point. I mean, there's a bunch. He also asked about Louisiana Monroe as that being the best bet in college football this week. I don't want to go there, but check your Louisiana Monroe COVID info before you go put any bets on the Warhawks.
I'd say any team, all seriousness, guys, I'm being serious when I say that the party bus is fun and all, but any team coming off a big upset win, maybe be a little more careful with them on Monday or Tuesday to make sure there wasn't a party bus. I don't know. I mean, it's the new world we live in. It's a new letdown fact. We always talk about a letdown after a big win or a big loss. I mean, now we have to worry about the party bus factor after a big win. In all seriousness, and didn't think I'd be saying that 45 minutes ago when we started the show, but that's the world we live in now. But Teddy's point's exactly right. By the way, all books in Nevada are regulated. You're going to get paid. So what I'd recommend doing is you can't have 20 accounts like a professional bettor does and should. As I said last week on a show we were doing, shop around, monitor the lines for a couple days. Pick books that have different numbers, in the NFL, especially one that has maybe higher price underdogs, higher price favorites, so that you're going to get a set of variety of lines. Because if you're getting the same number at 2 books, it doesn't really do you any good, to have 2, Teddy.
If you have $100 to bet, that's your entire bankroll. Open up 5 $20 accounts.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Never put everything into 1 or 2 accounts. Take the time and do it right, and you will. It's the difference between getting paid or pushing and losing. And once that happens to you once, twice, 3 times,
you'll learn.
Each time it happens, you get frustrated. You're like, I shouldn't have.
Yeah, and
bigger. If you want to win, these are the skills to win.
Yes.
Take your $100 and split it up in 5 different books and open up accounts at all of them, and that will help you. It'll make sure
the bookie speaks English. I've been in that situation too before.
Yeah, now the offshore world is a totally different ballgame, guys, because you have to add an extra element of getting paid when you win. So that's why it's even more important not to put all your eggs in one basket, also where something's not regulated, or they speak Russian. But in the new world we live in here, the U.S. with 14 plus states having legalized sports betting, have as many sports books as possible. Yeah. And of course, I've always said, guys, that picking the right team is only third in the order of importance. Money management and line value are the top two. If say you bet the same amount on every game, that's a perfectly fine money management standpoint. Then have 5 or 6 different sets of lines on every game. You will by default have a winning season just because you're going to get that extra half point enough times. Even if you're flipping a coin, you honestly could flip a coin at that point and probably come out ahead still by shopping line value. Any closing thoughts?
Be your own affiliate.
Real quick, Steve.
I have to cut this video before we get banned in the U.S. here.
Oh, somebody's calling.
Exactly. Yeah.
The ULM COVID news was applicable Saturday. I mean, there's a reason why Army went from 14 to 24. Not just fundamental, not just playing the triple option, because those teams in Louisiana had the bad weather. And, Louisiana Tech canceled the game against Baylor because COVID showed up. So believe me, it's out there. Go ahead and research it, and you'll be fine. I mean, that's what we do every single day. I've known Teddy for a lot of years, worked side by side with Teddy for a lot of years, so probably better than 20 years now, or close to 20 years. And, as much as I read it, Teddy will vouch for it. You'll find me there 2:00 in the morning if you want to IM me. But we're going through newspapers and news constantly. Tony, same way. All you got to do is read a write-up. Steve, I know you're the same way. So it's what we do for a living, guys. So, we're not plumbers from 8 to 5 right now. We can find this stuff for you. So long-term packages are really advisable where this WagerTalk and Sportsmemo are both concerned.
And that's why if you take the edge that we all have, a mathematical edge against the point spread, and then you bet your games correctly, we rate the games percentage of bankroll, so you don't have to even think of anything there. You play them the way we rate them. And then as Teddy said, and I've echoed, you shop around for line value by having multiple outs, multiple sports books. You will win money over the course of the season. And we've done this for decades now. I think that's been proven that we have an edge. That's a good way to finish, guys. Hey, $9 Monday is a great way to finish as well. $9 Monday right now at Sportsmemo and also for everybody at WagerTalk.com. And then, of course, we're back with some actual NBA games tomorrow on Tuesday. And we're live every weekday, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on WagerTalk TV for NBA Tip-Off. Tony Finn, Teddy Covers, Rob Vino. I'm your host, Steve Merrill. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on Tuesday.